How to find the perfect virtual assistant for your firm with Jaime Nacach, episode 321. Are you ready to make your law firm a profit-generating machine that will free up your time and skyrocket your impact? With more than 2 decades of business growth experience and having proven that you can be successful while prioritizing your family and your impact, introducing the Profit with Law podcast. I am your host, the creator of the Firm Differentiator 10X Effect, Moshe Amsel. Well, hello and welcome to another amazing guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and today we're going to be talking about leadership, team development, in a conversation with somebody who owns a virtual staffing agency. And I'm excited about this conversation. We've had other people on the podcast before talk about this. The idea of virtual assistants and offshore talent, like outside of the US, virtual assistants has been taking off with our law firm clients. And the more of our clients that are willing to think of their business differently, the more that they're looking for these opportunities. Because if you're billing by the hour, if you're what you can collect from your client is tied to the work that you're doing, or your attorney is doing, your paralegal's doing, then you have zero motivation to try to get anybody else to do that work. And that limits your ability to bring on inexpensive talent like offshore talent. And it also limits your ability to grow, because everything that you're doing is tied to the specific hours available of those billers. A better business model that we talk about a lot here on the podcast is thinking about alternative billing options, thinking about instead of hourly billing, thinking about flat fee billing. If you're in a PI practice, you're doing contingency, you're already set up beautifully for this. But estate planning, criminal law, not during litigation, but easy criminal cases, divorce, at least the beginning part of the divorce process. All of these are examples where alternative billing models can fit very, very nicely. And the more that you introduce alternative billing models, the more it becomes palpable, the more that it makes sense for you to be able to cut your expenses in delivering the client work. But it's not just about cutting the expenses, it's about increasing the capacity that you can handle. So you as an attorney, when you're billing by the hour, you might be able to only handle 20 clients a month. But if you have an army of assistants that are doing most of the work and you're just overseeing them, instead of handling 20, you might be able to handle 100 clients. And that's the massive difference. That's where the real difference comes out. And we can start looking at the numbers and you can see how the math is just crazy, where by the hour attorney maxes out between 400,000 and 600,000 in revenue, and a flat fee or contingency attorney can be bringing in well over $1 million in revenue. It's just massive, the difference that one attorney can make based on the supports that are made available to them. That's all tied to the business model. So I'm excited to jump into a conversation with Jaime Nacach. Don't forget, you can just sign up for a free coaching session with one of my coaches at profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. We'd love to support you there. And Jaime is the founder and owner of Virtual Latinos. And let me tell you a little bit about him. He's an energetic leader, an entrepreneur, marketer, and self-taught techie. By integrating creativity, business strategy, and technology, he's assisted over 150 companies to grow online and operate 20 to 30% more efficiently. He founded and built a digital marketing agency, Bluminary, and a virtual assistant hiring portal, Virtual Latinos, with his branding, sales, marketing, and automation expertise. His specialties include marketing strategy and consulting, online lead generation, marketing automation, web design and e-commerce, branding and graphic design, and group leadership. Jaime, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much, Moshe. Pleasure to be here. Really great to speak with you today. So thank you for the opportunity.
You're very welcome. And I appreciate you spending the time to be with our listeners today. I'm sure that we're going to get a ton of value out of this conversation. But before we start, I gave you the boilerplate intro. Our listeners want to know who you are as a person. So why don't you spend just a couple of minutes telling us a little bit about your background, how you got into this in the first place, and where this journey has taken you.
Sure, for sure. Thank you so much. So yes, I'm originally from Mexico City. I've been living in San Diego here for quite a few years. I am professionally, I'm a digital marketer. That's what I've done for many, many years. And I built, like you mentioned, the digital marketing agency. But I am a person who loves technology, loves to automate things, loves to do things efficiently. And in my company, during my time as a marketing agency, I had my entire team in the US and I only work with really small businesses. So I got to a point where I had to decide, do I increase my prices to still be able to make money or do I decrease my costs? And that's when I kind of looked for the option for decreasing the cost, in this case, by hiring people outside the US. And like most companies, I guess at the time, the only option was mostly to hire people from the Philippines. So that's kind of what I did. And really long story short, I did that. It took a long time. I did it on my own without an agency. And I realized like I wasted so much time during this process. I also wasn't so happy at all with the whole time difference with the Philippines, internet connection issues. Some people scammed me. It really wasn't positive at all. I'm not saying it's not for a lot of people. It's great. And a lot of people have assistants in the Philippines and they're great. But for me specifically, living in San Diego, I'm like literally the border's 20 minutes from my house. I speak Spanish. I got to find some, in this case, Mexicans to help out. And long story short, there was not many marketers that I could find in Tijuana, Mexico. And Upwork wasn't really offering the things that I was looking for. And I realized that at the time in 2018, there wasn't really any companies other than one offering sort of virtual assistants from Latin America. So January 2018, I took the challenge on, building it on my own. And that's what Virtual Latinos today is. Now we have a lot more competitors, but at the time there was only one that was kind of small. And now we're actually helping clients from all over the US and Canada and Europe hire people from all over Latin America. So yeah, I now became sort of a recruitment company, even though I didn't really have any background in recruitment.
Very interesting. And what do you consider Latin America? Like how, like, okay, I got Mexico, but what does it cover? What countries do you pull people from? And
sure, it covers so Mexico is technically North America, but it is still part of Latin America. So it's not South America, but so Mexico, all of Central America, which includes Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Panama, all of Central America, and then all of South America. We didn't include Brazil in the past, but now we're including Brazil too. So literally every Spanish or Portuguese speaking country in South America, as well as a few islands in the Caribbean who also speak Spanish. So I can tell you that the three top countries we hire from are Mexico, Honduras, and Colombia.
It's interesting that you should mention those countries because I personally here on my staff have virtual assistants from Latin America, and one of them is from Honduras and one of them is from Colombia. So that's exactly where we have exposure to. We also have two VAs in the Philippines. So you had a poor experience in the Philippines. I have a very positive experience in the Philippines. However, there's still a significant language barrier, even more than English as a second language speakers in Latin America, and the time zone difference, which one of my clients now just enlightened me to the fact that there are a number of people in the Philippines who prefer to work during their nighttime, which would put them available during your daytime. But my VAs in the Philippines are working during my nighttime, which creates challenges when we're working on a project. And so they're doing like the graphic design and they'll send it back to my team here. And then my team has a minor adjustment and they have to wait a whole nother day to see the change. So that, that just forces us to either have longer timelines for our deadlines, or we're going to have somebody inconvenienced to work during their non-business hours to collaborate and get it done. So I totally get and understand this concept of needing to have people that are available in your time zone. I think one of the biggest challenges that my audience will have with virtual assistants in general is how does that fit into my business model? And I talked about legal billing. I don't know if that's an area of expertise for you. I'm guessing probably not. But my question to you is if they're considering it, like, what are the factors that they want to look at when it's in person versus virtual, before we even talk about Latin America versus the US, right?
Yeah.
When I'm weighing the option between having somebody in the office and having somebody work virtually, what are the things that I should be looking at?
Sure. So, I mean, I can tell you that our first ever client that called, was very, client that was a potential a lawyer that was a potential client was very concerned with the fact that, like, wait, like, I'm a lawyer, there's all these, sensitive data that I'm going to be outsourcing, or potentially have somebody outside my physical office in the US having access to my data, which is my client's data, which is very sensitive. That became like one of the main issues that they were having. And they weren't so sure, if they wanted to go ahead and do it. But, there's lots of things that you can do so that you can guard your data and your client's data as much as possible. Today, lawyers don't see that as the main challenge. The challenge is more like, what types of tasks am I going to give to them, right? So once you're okay with the fact that you're obviously going to work with someone outside your office remotely, whether it's remotely in the US or remotely in Latin America, yes, you're going to use technology to your advantage. Now, what types of tasks can be outsourced? So we have sort of two groups of clients. We have clients that are okay with hiring, actually, in this case, for example, people who have experience as lawyers outside their firm, in this case in Latin America, and they're okay with that, even though they can't give legal advice. And then there's those like tell us, no, we don't want to have anybody that are lawyers because they might give the wrong information or try to give legal advice, which they're not supposed to, right? Most of our clients, because we help them out through the process, we created a whole list of tasks that they can help with. They're usually administrative, case management tasks, customer support tasks. So a lot of the back end work that usually a paralegal in the US tends to do.
Yeah. So when one of the things that I've heard my clients grapple with and my listeners grapple with is this, in the office, it's very convenient to just, you pop your head into the next office, you ask a question, you're walking around in the hallway, you meet up with somebody at the water cooler, you start having a conversation about what, sports game happened over the weekend and,
sure,
who won the lottery and, or what terrible tragedy occurred over the last 24 hours. That seems to be something that gets lost in the process when you have virtual staffing. What have you seen some of your clients do that's really innovative
sure.
and thinking outside the box to involve their virtual staff in the inner workings of the office?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'll give you some examples. So first of all, we have many clients that are hybrid, probably like and many companies that they have both people in-house and people virtually. And that's usually been a really great model for a lot of lawyers that have, let's say, a mid-size or a bigger operation. So they have both people, of course, that they have inside their physical office and a lot of people virtually. So one of the things that definitely work for those, for example, hybrid companies is the fact that they have Slack or something like Telegram where they're chatting constantly all day, which is kind of the same as obviously talking to someone. Now, of course, it's never the same as physically seeing someone compared to chatting on the chat, but even many US companies today already have this, communication systems in place, whether they're in the office or not. So when everybody's on that same chat, it makes it a lot easier and you kind of, erase these gaps of distance between the physical and the virtual. So that's helped a lot. Separately, I have a client who, for them, the whole like seeing each other's faces is so important that it's only one client that is definitely the exception, but they actually request that all of their virtual staff are on the computer on Zoom all day long, which means there's a physical screen like for that person on the actual office. So if you're walking around, you'll always see that person, even though they're in the screen, and they have Zoom on all day so that it feels like they're in the office. You don't have to request to meet with them. And as you're walking around the office, you'll see them, just working. They're like all the time on, right? That's definitely not something that every assistant was okay with in terms of having on at the same time, but that's definitely something that they did. And another thing that's actually great that doesn't exactly necessarily solve the question, but it's been really great is that some of our clients have actually flown their assistants from Latin America to their local office. I've done this. Another client from San Diego has done this. And that's the most powerful because you can have all the benefits and savings in terms of money with still hiring people outside the US, but make sure that there's a lot of team building and people really feel they're part of the same company by bringing them to physically know each other.
Yeah, I would do it as like a team retreat, and I would go to them. So I
Yeah,
would
that's the better idea.
let's go to Costa Rica and let's meet over there,
Yes.
and have a business retreat down south where it's nice and beautiful and warm and different. But yeah, I one of the things that I've heard a lot of law firms and probably businesses are doing this as well is creating these retreats where everybody gets together, and it could be a planning session, it could be a team building exercises that you're working on, but to really just get everybody to know each other on a more personal level, which requires that in-person meeting.
For sure.
I'm curious, do some of the virtual assistants, when presented with these opportunities, have difficulty with travel? Does that become a problem, or?
That depends on the specific person. Like, so we internally now have a team of about 40 people, and some of them already have a US visa and some of them don't. So most of them do, but the ones who don't obviously need to go to the embassy or consulate to try to get one. And that takes a whole time because of the whole COVID getting even just an appointment, it's a hassle. But all the ones who have it usually are totally okay with traveling. We did this last October. We invited 4 people from our leadership team. They came out to San Diego. And I mean, we had an amazing time. And of course, we paid for their trips for them to come. So yeah,
That's
most
awesome.
of them are totally open to do it. We've also had other people who don't work directly with us, but with our clients, who just informed us, hey, I'm going to be traveling to Texas and I want to see my client because I'm going to be around. I'm like, great. And the client and them meet up. It's amazing.
Okay, so I think we got this difference between in office, virtual. Let's talk briefly, because I think you already hit on the key points. But why would somebody want to get somebody who's in Latin America versus somebody who's stateside here in the U.S.?
Yeah. So I mean, from the feedback I've heard, from clients overall, but specifically clients, I mean, cost is for sure one of the main factors to drive their decision. Depending on whatever cost they have, depending on which state they practice law, having a trained legal assistant is very expensive. It can go from, I don't know, $20 to $50 an hour, where our assistants are going to save them, between 30 at the minimum, 30%, all the way up to 70% in cost. So like the cost savings are a huge thing. And considering the fact that, you're going to get to pay a lot less, but for a person that is, a college graduate, is professional, has education. In fact, let me start by saying that we're trying to completely change the fact that we call them normally virtual assistants and calling them virtual professionals. We've changed our website, our marketing materials. We're just calling them virtual professionals in everything that we're trying to promote, because the reality is that they're not just assistants anymore that we hire. Maybe other companies just have assistants, but now we have people with all types of backgrounds and degrees. We have people with master's degrees, PhDs. So we're really just helping connect these virtual professionals with the people in the US. So cost is one. Time zone, I think, is definitely the second biggest, specifically talking about virtual assistants, in this case from Latin America, because the clients want to have these assistants help them with clients. And the clients obviously are going to be working and living during the US time zones. So while the assistants are also living and breathing the same time zone, it's very easy to work with them. There's nothing about that whole, time difference. So that's the second. And definitely the third is the fact that in our case specifically, we vet the assistants a lot because of working in this case. If you choose to work with an agency as opposed to hiring on your own, we as an agency really do take all the time consuming work of finding, vetting, and interviewing all the assistants. And we only present people 3 to 4 of the best options. And that was something actually I didn't start the business with. I actually started with copying a model from the Philippines, onlinejobs.ph, which was a directory for people to hire on their own, but very quickly realized the reason people need an assistant is because they're so busy, they don't even have time to properly do recruitment. So that's why now we offer that for them. So yeah, costs, the time zone, finding people who are professional and experienced. And then in this case, if you go through an agency, that time savings of not having to do it all on your own. So our clients consider us more like their HR or recruitment department.
Yeah, and I think this probably falls under the cost category, but it's also you don't have to pay payroll taxes. You don't have to. So there's a whole compliance area that you just don't have to deal with. So even if somebody doesn't have any employees, it's just them, they're hiring their first employee, you don't have to start getting set up with unemployment insurance and family leave insurance and all that stuff. You don't have to worry about benefits like health insurance or 401k contributions. For the smart people in the room, if you're running a highly profitable business and you want to create a defined benefit pension plan where you can sock away $250,000 of profits and avoid taxes on it, that has to be offered to your employees also.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have offshore employees, they're excluded from that. And you can avoid needing to contribute into everyone else's retirement plan in the process. So there's a lot of other things that they fall into the cost bucket, but it's more of the headaches that a lot of business owners have. Now, of course, if you have a hybrid, if you have some in person or stateside and some virtual, out of the country, you're still going to have all those compliance issues with your stateside staff. And once you're set up for it, it's a lot less of a headache, for each new employee that comes on. So then it's just really a cost bucket item. But it's something to think about when, if you're thinking about hiring your first person, or you already have virtual assistants outside of the country and you're thinking about expanding beyond what you already have, to consider the virtual professionals. Which, by the way, you might have rebranded the whole thing, but you didn't rebrand your background. So you got to
no,
or your shirt.
We're still going to call them virtual professionals, but the company, it's definitely something we thought about. But Virtual Latinos is the niche that we're in, but we don't want to call them virtual assistants. But yes, I know what you're getting at.
Virtual professional Latinos.
Exactly.
So, all right. So let me ask you this. What you said that you vet these candidates. So you've gone through the process of finding the cream of the crop. What is the process you actually follow to vet them? Like, how do you determine that they're okay to present to your clients?
Great question. So because I didn't really have any background with recruitment, I'm just basically put the way that I hired as a marketing agency and as a marketing agency owner. I'm a very picky guy. I'm a really detail-oriented type of guy, and I want to find people that are very detail-oriented, that are great with communication, and that they're committed. So what we basically built is a process that that makes people first fill out a online application form where they have to complete a lot of different steps, including writing things, of course, in English. Taking an English test is an important part of the step. Recording an audio voice so we can hear them speak in English. They got to take a personality test. They got to send us their internet speeds. Some of them we request, letters of recommendation or references. But I guess part of the key sauce of why this works is because we've made the process long and boring. And there's a lot of hurdles that they got to go through. So all of these hurdles have helped us really literally filter the people who are committed, who want to truly be part of our community, and that we know are going to most likely work with our clients and us for the long term, because they've already proved to us that they're okay with going through a lot of hoops, and they're detail oriented based on the little tasks that we ask them to complete so that we can approve them. So we accept about 5% of people who apply, and we end up hiring the top 2%. I mean, we won't have time to go through all the details, but the point is, we make a lot of steps on purpose to weed out the people who I don't think are going to last. And they're going to be good in their English skills. They're making sure that they can follow directions, that they know how to communicate, a lot of different things that we test to make sure that our clients are going to be happy with them.
Yeah, I love that. That's perfect. And this way, at least when you're presented with somebody, you at least know that they've checked all those boxes already. So you could focus on the specific skills you're looking for, the specific personality you're looking for, the right fit into your organization, and not have all that stuff. Let's talk about the English language for a moment.
Sure.
One of the things that I found in the Philippines, it's a real problem, but in Latin America, there's a lot of really strong English speaking people that are really proud of their grasp of the English language, but when they actually send you something in writing, it's not grammatically correct. And and as an American reading it, it's like, wow, how do they even send this to me? Like, didn't they know that somebody's gonna be evaluating them for a job on this? Like, shouldn't they have gone to like Upwork, find an American, and say, hey, can you read this and proof it for me? But regardless, what is the expectation that a business owner should have when they're hiring as to the grasp of the English language, the strength of it, and where does the buck stop as far as where they fit, right? Like,
Sure.
am I having them client facing? Are they communicating with my clients in English? Are they communicating in writing? Is it something that I need to be checking on them as they're progressing? That give me the full overview of how all of that works.
Sure. Great. So give me 1 second. Just gonna close here just in case somebody just got home. Okay. So
for those of you on the audio podcast, he just went and he put his hand through the purple wall behind him and then pulled it back in, and apparently closed something.
Yeah, sorry, I just had to lock the door so my door doesn't come in screaming like some of those things.
The virtual background. I didn't see a door.
So. Sorry about that. So I'll tell you that first we have the two types of people when it comes to English: the people that are really good in speaking but not so good in writing, and the opposite. They're very good in writing and not so good necessarily in speaking in terms of their fluency. So the first thing that you should know is that we hire specifically based on the people's needs. So there's definitely many jobs that law firm clients request from us that are definitely client facing, where they need to speak with the clients, in this case, mostly in English, but in many cases also in Spanish, because many of our clients are immigration lawyers. So, and many people who immigrate to the US, of course, speak Spanish. So having that bilingual is important. But then there's many other jobs that they're totally not client facing. So the spoken English is not that important. The English writing is definitely more important. We ourselves, the English test that they take, it's sort of measured on a European, let's say, scale in terms of how good it is. We only accept those who meet, the certain minimum to have a good enough English to both speak, write, and understand. But then because they also send us the audio file, we can really understand, their English. Now, we've internally decided that, even if somebody doesn't have the best English accent, that's okay, because not every job requires them to speak in English client facing, but it's got to be good enough to at least communicate with a client. So I can tell you that this has been a long question and debate of how we even offer to our clients the service in terms of, hey, what to expect from our assistants in Latin America in terms of their English. And many cases, people expect, when we say, hey, they're going to have great English, especially if you pay more, suddenly they expect that they're going to have a native American English accent. So we've now definitely changed the term, and we've said now, usually when they're looking for somebody with better English, it's better English fluency, which means they can easily speak, they can be understood, but almost all of them are usually always going to have an accent. Even I have an accent, and I've been here for a very long time. There's definitely people who have less of an accent than others, but very few have a true, American, let's say, born accent. And those are usually the ones who were born here, they were raised here, and then they went to Latin America, which we have quite a few of those. But I guess the expectation, to sort of summarize it, is like everybody who we vet has to have good enough English business skills to be able to communicate with our clients at the very least, both in verbally and in writing. And when it comes to client-facing things, of course, we pick the ones who have better English fluency, and the ones that are doing back-end work, definitely to use better, English. Now, we kind of request everybody to use Grammarly, which is a free plugin on Chrome to, always fix their English spelling errors. And that usually does most of the trick with the free version. And then if you paid for the paid version, it's even better.
So we covered why a business owner would want to use Virtual Latinos over going and finding somebody themselves. We didn't cover that question specifically, but you explained the vetting process and all of that you're doing. You're handling paying them. You handle all those things, and that would make a lot of sense for a business owner to say, okay, this makes sense for me to just go to Virtual Latinos, tell you what I'm looking for. You present me with candidates, and I just pick the best one. What is the people who are working for you, what is their motivation for wanting to work for Virtual Latinos, as opposed to going and finding their own business to work for, where they can potentially make more by getting paid directly?
Great question, and I'm glad that you're asking. So, yeah, I can tell you that one of the things that when I was first starting the company and trying to figure out and define how we were going to make this special, is the fact that we created an internal community. That once we've accepted the assistants to be part of our community, there really is, let's say, a virtual actual community that lives in Telegram, that lives on Facebook, that lives in an internal sort of like Facebook community. So we have different places where the actual community is involved. And it's amazing how much people cheer on other people to try to find a job, in this case with us. And then people congratulate each other. People ask a lot of questions. So the new people have lots of questions, and then they're in the same group with the people that are currently hired. So there's a lot of this actual communication between them. And that's a great resource for them to feel like they belong somewhere, even when they're not even getting hired, potentially for a few months. So that's a good value to them in terms of, finding all these resources to figure out this new virtual world, because for most of them have not worked virtually before, because in Latin America, remote and virtual work didn't really exist much, except now that COVID happened, it's a lot more common. So that's one of the big benefits, is the community. The second benefit is the fact that we provide them with a lot of resources to teach them how to get better at presenting themselves. We coach them on how to present their proposals to our clients. We give them sort of a lot of coaching, and we have dedicated customer success and VA success agents that once they are hired, we're always communicating with them. And one of the many comments we've received from various VAs, when the client has actually tried to go against an agreement and hire them directly, even though they already signed an agreement with them, the assistant has let us know. And the fact that the client is trying to break the agreement and they know it makes them untrust the client, and they trust us because they know that, hey, I don't know, this client is trying to break the rules with Virtual Latinos. They might not pay me tomorrow. They might go and hire me for a bunch of time and then not pay me. And it's like, I don't want to deal with that, right? They want to deal with an organization that's professional, that's going to always pay them on time, and that potentially they actually lose their job, or they want a different job, they can count on us to provide them other opportunities. So they really see us as a community to help them out. And we are actually giving them very competitive rates on purpose. We as a company chose to get a smaller, let's say, profit margin that's not percentage based on purpose. We want to make sure that the assistants are here for the long term. And that's a big thing that at Virtual Latinos here we promote. We don't accept clients who want to hire for the short term. We're only looking for both assistants and clients looking to build long-term relationships, whether that's a year, 2 years, whatever that might mean.
Yeah, I love that, and clearly you provide a lot of supports for them, and that's the attraction for them to want to work with you, want to stay with you, and also makes them highly engaged with the job that they end up getting. How does the pay that they're getting from you, how does that compare to what's available to them in their marketplace? Is it a premium? Is it about the same? Is it below average? I know myself as an employer of virtual assistants through a third party, I'm always concerned. What if somebody else woos them away, right? How do I know if they're getting paid competitively?
Yeah.
And therefore, how do I make sure that my retention is good, in the
That's
process?
Great question. Yeah, so it's a great question. So we've definitely had a few clients along the way that have asked that question. We don't necessarily right now share, what exactly our profit margin is, but we've definitely done the math, and our assistants get paid between 68% to about 90, I think 1 or 92% of what the clients pay us. So that is to say basically that we pay most of what we get paid to the assistant, again, on purpose. And I'm going to say that opposed to other organizations that are in the recruitment business that I know, where they tell me, they keep 50% or they keep 70%, and the assistant only gets, whether it's 30% or 50%, and there's like these huge profit margins for these agencies. We don't want to do that for 2 reasons. One, because we want to make sure that our clients are happy, and we know they're only going to be happy if the assistant is happy getting paid well. Otherwise, the assistant is going to leave them, and then they're going to leave us, right? So we're in it for the long term, right? So yes, to answer your questions, I think that our rates are quite competitive, which is why we have a pretty good retention rate, and we've had people working with us for years. That's definitely becoming harder and harder now that COVID happened, and there's so many other virtual opportunities. So that's definitely a challenge that we have today. And to kind of counter that challenge, we're now thinking about offering, co-partnering with our clients, offering what we're going to call perks, not officially called benefits, but we got to give the assistants other perks to want them to continue to work with us, whether that's paying for part of their, insurance, for some perks for internet, to pay for some of their internet costs. So there's a lot of perks that we can come up with, and they're totally optional, of course, but I can tell you that the clients that are already our biggest clients, who hire 20 or 30 assistants at a time, they are very much thinking about retention, and more than just paying them good, which we already, they know that they're getting paid well. Now there's other factors that come into place in terms of retention.
Yeah, I mean, in the area of perks, one of my VAs recently had a baby, and what I did was I asked her. I said, "Well, what are you going to do with your child while you're working?" And she said, "Well, I'm going to have to hire somebody to come in and help me, so I can, so I'm not distracted by the baby, so I can do my job." And I asked her, okay, what are you going to pay that person? And I said, okay, send me the bill.
Yeah, that's
we're
great.
We're going to cover it, because it's there. I can't imagine that by the time they're done with paying that, it's the same conversation that happens here, right? Daycare in the US is so expensive that many people find that it's just not worth it to go to work and then pay daycare. And at the end of the day, what do you end up with? So I don't want my employee to be in that position where they're questioning whether it's even worth it for them to continue working. She's valuable to the team, and I want her to feel that way. I want her to stay that way. And in the grand scheme of things, it's really it's not a big premium off of what we're already paying to have her there. So
and let me give you some other example that I always forget to mention, because it should be a selling point, but it's nowhere listed on our website or our agreement. And people now tell us, like, why haven't you told me? Like, you should totally tell me. So I'll tell people now. For example, whenever a client decides to give the assistant a raise or a bonus, 100% of that bonus or raise gets paid to the assistant. We as a company never make more money from once we've had the original agreement. Anything where you want to raise $1 to the assistant, we charge you $1, we pay them $1. You want to give them a bonus of $500, I charge you $500, and I pay them $500. And we really believe that, obviously, the assistants earned it, they should deserve it, and they should get everything that's related to that. So that's how we function. And I think that's, of course, the most fair thing to do. So that's a big thing that we're now going to try to, tell people and inform them, because of our clients not knowing is not so good. So a lot of people now pay bonuses. A lot of people either once a year or twice a year now give their assistants a raise. And to your example about the maternity leave, one of my internal team members has been with us for 4 years, already had 2 babies, and we covered their paid leave because we chose to. Based on the contractor agreement, we don't have to, but of course we chose to.
Yeah. And we had a similar thing where basically the staffing company honored whatever the amount of leave that was allowed in the country that the assistant was in is what they provided, as far as how long she could be out. They offered to give me a staffer in place while she was out, but I chose not to take them up on it, just to onboard somebody and train them for just a few months. I think it was like 66 days. It just didn't make sense. For us to do that. I did have one more question, but it's eluding me now, so I don't remember. But you did make a good point with the raises, though, because the staffing company that I'm using, which we talk about here, it's Get Staffed Up. We talked about it here often. They don't do that with the raises. They, if you want to give a raise, they charge you a percentage. They charge 15% to process that raise to the client. That really bothered me. I'm not going to lie, as a client. So I pay bonuses through PayPal to my, to my employees directly. I don't go through the staffing company. And the other thing that I would have liked to see, and you're probably not doing this, but it's something that I'll share with you as a business owner who's using staffers. What I would like to see is, you're making money off of the relationship, right? So we and we didn't even talk about this. We talked about it before, but you have the ability for somebody to buy out their employee after 24 months. The way that I see it is that, you know, you already made money off of this employee being here after 12 months. So when I want to give a raise after a year, I would like to see you share in that raise, right? Give up some of your profit.
No, but the raise goes directly to them. That's what I'm. Oh, you think?
I give $1, you give $1. They get a $2 an hour raise, right?
Got it. Yeah.
So that's
a good idea.
I would like to see that as the relationship progresses, that more of this money is going to go to the employee, and it's not costing me more, because for you to profit long term, you know, for 3 or 4 years, just doesn't make sense in the business model, right? Even like if we look at staffing companies here, they place somebody, they charge a month, 2 months, 3 months of their salary, and that's their fee, right?
Sure.
This whole model of having a middleman paying your employee and having that relationship with your employee, and then what you're trying to build this long-term employee model. Long-term, it doesn't make sense. It makes sense short-term.
So I'll tell you something about that, because we're offering basically what we're sort of calling VIP benefits to our clients that hire 10 or more assistants. So which might go sort of against what we're doing, but without me charging my clients more money, so simply from the fact that they're hiring more assistants. First, I give them now sort of like a wholesale discount. The more assistants that they buy or hire from us, they get basically a discounted price. So from the regular price, we actually just discount the money. So they're just paying less. We're getting less of a profit. But at the same time, we're actually putting people that are part of our team, our customer success, in this case, our director, who's part of our team, that's on our expense, for them to work with our clients directly in their meetings, and they become sort of like their staff/HR, part-time manager. And we have like quite a few clients that work with our director like this, and it's a lot of that director's time, but it's of course to help the client, and the client sees it as a huge benefit because they don't have to hire somebody else to do that job, right? And so we also have a tighter relationship with the client, and our team really sort of offers a little bit of a management of that team as an extra benefit. Now, again, yes, we could say we don't have to have that manager, and then we could do what you suggested, which is a good idea. Or in my case, I want to provide more value,
Yeah. So I mean, either way, the longer the relationship goes on, there should be a value add that's provided, whatever that looks like. All right. It's just been a great conversation. I can't tell you. I mean, hopefully it comes through in this conversation and behind the microphone. I love this concept of hiring VAs, hiring offshore talent, as long as there's a discount to do so, significant discount. There's no reason not to. Educated professionals, well-spoken, well-written, they can well represent your law firm. And for a fraction of the cost. And instead of looking at the cost savings, look at how much time you can buy, right? So for the price of one person in the office, you can buy, so for the price of 40 hours in a week, you can buy 120 hours or 160 hours in the week. Same price. Imagine how many more clients you can serve, how much more revenue you can get, therefore how much more profit you can earn in this process. And no, they're not going to replace attorneys. The attorneys have a role, but if we really look at what does the attorney do, even the paralegal, what does the paralegal do? How much of that actually has to be done by an attorney or by a paralegal, and how much of it can, if it's, and then here's the key. If you clearly document the process and create a process that can be followed around it, how much of that can be handed down to somebody with less skill, less know-how, less knowledge? And the longer this person is there, the more they know, the more knowledgeable they are. How often do you hire a file clerk who then becomes a paralegal in your office? They didn't go to special training to become a paralegal. They just picked up all the nuances they needed to pick up doing their job in your office. So the same can happen with these virtual assistants. It's just a matter of having the patience to groom them, to give them the attention that they need in order to be able to grow into these employees that you have. One of the things that you mentioned just out, without even realizing that you said it probably, is that when you had your people come into San Diego, you called them members of your leadership team. And I think that encapsulates this concept, right? Like, these are not virtual assistants. This could be your next COO, your next, like the person who's running your show could be this assistant that you're hiring. And we really need to change the way that we think about staff and the way that we think about employment and expand on it, because this could be what gives you the leg up. This could be what allows you to walk home with a 40% profit margin instead of a 20 or 15% profit margin. It's just massive what a difference this can make in your business. And I can't stress it enough. So I love that that you've been here with me, Jaime.
Thank you.
It's a great interview. Now we're out of time. We're wrapping up. I want to do two things. Number one is I want to give you an opportunity to share with people how they can connect with you, how they can take the next step with you. If there's anything else that you want to share with them, that they might find of value, what is that? But the other thing is I want you to leave just one last thought with our listeners. What are the top tip that you can provide, or anything related to our conversation, unrelated, doesn't matter. If you want to leave one last impression with them, what would that be?
Sure. Thank you. I mean, right now there's a book coming out of a company from the Philippines, Inside Outsourcing, and the owner is publishing a book. And I was reading, some of the, summary of what that book is. And there's lots of books and articles talking about it, but just to keep people with a long-term thought is the fact that, we are at the very beginning of the future of the global workforce. I mean, the reality is that in 20 years, we're going to all the time probably be looking to hire globally, because the talent can come from anywhere. And as time goes by and technology and COVID already showed us, companies are going to be looking for the best talent wherever it is. Right. And so whether it's today a virtual assistant and tomorrow, hopefully, the term virtual professional that we're going to continue to talk about, we are in a perfect time to start either creating that hybrid model with working with people virtually, or actually just having a totally remote, office. And we have many clients who don't have hybrid, that only have remote, and some of them have hybrid. But the point is, think about how the world is changing more and more thanks to technology, and the fact that now companies like Fiverr, Upwork, all these virtual assistant agencies are really changing how we're going to work tomorrow. And the fact that because they're not working in the US, one of the key things to think about is that currently the laws for labor are only based on where you live. So the moment that you're hiring outside the US, all those labor laws and all those requirements don't apply, which today makes it a lot easier to hire and grow your team. So it's a good time to join.
Right. And it's also something to keep in mind, because at some point when the global workforce becomes enough of a problem, the laws are going to change. Right.
100% true.
It's only a matter of time before the U.S. wises up to the fact that there's enough employment taxes being lost. There's enough income taxes being lost with money going to offshore talent, that they're going to find a way to make sure that everybody that you're hiring and that's working for you is officially registered and has their fair share taken out. So that's bound to happen at some point. So get it while the getting is good. Exactly. take advantage while you can now, and use it to grow what you have and build your firm, beyond your wildest dreams, and deal with that problem when it comes. But here's the opportunity right now, and just take advantage of it.
And another thing to think, sorry to interrupt you, is the fact that, a lot of people keep thinking like virtual assistant, they're only going to do low level tasks. Let me tell you, clients, whether they're ours or from other companies, are very impressed in general of the talent you can find. If you're listening to this and you've never hired, an offshore or virtual assistant, you might be very impressed of the amazing talent that there's out there, especially when you're going to be paying less, and those people work a lot harder. From what I've been told from many clients, these people really want to work hard because they want to prove to you that they're going to be worth it for you to work with them for the long term, right? So as an employer, you feel great that you're saving money and you're helping them, and they're working in a way harder than you be having somebody potentially with the same pay or much more here.
Yeah, I definitely the work ethic is unquestionable. Like there's one of the things that's happening here in the U.S. is the millennials are getting hired, and quite honestly, I'm gonna give broad strokes because there's always exceptions, but they are a lazy bunch. And they just don't want to work. They just want to get paid for being there. And, and that's something you're not going to find with offshore talent. They're all workhorses. They want to work. They want to, they want to do well. One of the challenges that I have is getting my people away from thinking of their job as a clock in, clock out 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. I'm not a big fan of that. I want you to think about these are the things that I have to do. And if it takes you only 20 hours, enjoy the other 20 hours. I don't need you to be punching a clock in the morning and at night. Now I'm different. A lot of people do want that, but that's something that there's a mentality with the offshore talent where they think that, they're being watched by the minute. And they need to make sure they're accountable to every minute. And, so
But Moshe, I'm going to tell you, our biggest client is the same as you. Our biggest client who hires over 30 people, that's actually part of his policy. I don't want anybody to do time tracking because we require it, but he said, no, anybody who works with me, I don't care about the time tracking. And so he's never time tracking. So he expects them to work very well when they're working, and when there's time off, they can have time off as long as they do their task and they complete things as they need to. The time is not so important in this specific case.
Yeah. So we have in our Slack channel, we have a check-in, check-out channel. And the only purpose for that is that we know who's present. We know who's there. So if I'm trying to reach somebody and they're not responding, I can go in and see, oh, did they check in today? Oh, they didn't check in. Okay, I know that they're not here. And why they're not here, that's a whole nother, that maybe they have no internet, or maybe they were sick, or they, whatever it is. But so that's the purpose of that channel. It's not there to track, oh, did they check in at 9? Did they leave at 5? Sometimes people are like, oh, I forgot to check in. I'm checking in now. Don't worry about it. As long as we know you're here, it's good. Now, you were going to share how people can take the next step with Virtual Latinos, and perhaps I know that we talked about a resource that you want to share with our listeners as well.
Sure. So definitely the first way that you can, visit us and learn more about Virtual Latinos is on our website, virtuallatinos.com. I want to tell everyone that, we consider ourselves more like recruitment consultants. So when you're speaking usually with our team, we actually interview our clients a lot. We spend a lot of time interviewing our clients, and that's a benefit that we like to let everybody know about, because we're all about finding the right match. So I want to invite you to come to our website. There's a couple of things that I want to tell you about. First, we have a link that Moshe is going to be sharing so that you can download an ebook of the 40 most common tasks that you can outsource to a virtual assistant. This is a very general list. Then we also have actually a menu by industry. So you can go to our website, click on tasks to outsource. And for law firms, we have a whole list of the most common tasks that law firms actually request from our assistants. And that'll be, of course, more specific. And then there's a lot more resources that we can provide to you, and actually walking you through what we call the client roadmap. So a lot of people are very kind of unsure of how this process for hiring works. So not only do we tell you usually over a phone call if you want to talk to us, we also have a very nice, PDF with step-by-step of exactly what it takes, as well as, let's say, pre-hiring things that you need to do to actually be sure that you're ready before you start this process. So thank you so much, Moshe. You can again visit us at virtuallatinos.com. Moshe is going to send that link, and then we're also going to share potentially another link so you can book a call if you'd like to.
Yeah. So if you go to profitwithlaw.com/virtual Latinos, profitwithlaw.com/virtual Latinos, that'll be redirected to this 40 tasks that you can outsource to a virtual assistant ebook that Jaime was kind enough to share with us. And for booking a call, I guess we'll just do VL call. So profitwithlaw.com/VL call, Virtual Latinos call. And we'll link all of that up in the show notes so that you can take advantage of that, whichever one makes sense for you, right? If you're not ready to hire somebody, but you do want to expand your knowledge on what you can do and think about that, then go ahead, get that ebook, read it, enjoy it. But if you're ready to hire somebody right now, you're in the market, you're looking, and you want to check out Virtual Latinos, see what they have to offer, book a call with them, have a conversation, and hopefully they can help fulfill your needs. Jaime, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for your time and joining us today. Folks, if you enjoyed this episode, this is your first time, you're welcome. If this is your first time tuning into the Profit with Law podcast and you love this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every time we release a new episode. And if you've been listening to us for a while, we'd love it if you'd leave us a rating and review and let other people know how amazing this podcast is so that they can tune in as well. Don't forget to just sign up for a free coaching session with one of my coaches at profitwithlaw.com/free coaching. We'd love to support you there. We'll catch you next week. Take care. Thank you for tuning into the Profit with Law podcast. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us, as well as helping us reach more people with this valuable content. Please leave us a rating and review in your favorite podcast directory. Join us again next time when we are back with even more strategies to profit with law.